The sun of the Zetherian border system glinted off the metal hulls of human reconnaissance ships, sending streaks of light across the blackness of space. Captain Elias Varick stood on the observation deck of the Intrepid, his eyes scanning the frontier with a mixture of caution and curiosity. For years, humanity had clashed with the Zetherians, an alien species known for their strength, cunning, and an unmatched warrior code. Yet here on the edge of their territory there was a strange, uneasy calm. Elias's mission was simple: scout the outer settlements, gather intelligence, and avoid conflict. But simple missions rarely stayed simple. "Captain," called Lieutenant Mira, breaking his focus. "Sensors are picking up movement near the northern ridge of the valley. Large numbers. Armored units. Zetherian Type 5 warriors," Elias nodded. "How far?" "Approximately 12 clicks. They're advancing toward the settlement, sir." Elias frowned. The valley below was home to a small Zetherian settlement, mostly civilian. Rumors had circulated about a young queen ruling the region, known for her strong leadership and sharp mind. But no human had ever seen her up close, and right now her people were in danger. "Deploy observation drones," Elias ordered. "I want a clear picture before we make any move." The drones zipped out into the sky, cameras sending live images to the bridge. The sight made Elias's jaw tighten. A group of heavily armed mercenaries had surrounded the village. Smoke rose from small fires, and alien children ran through the streets screaming in terror. And then he saw her. A small figure trapped under rubble. A young Zetherian girl no older than 10, her blue-scaled skin shimmering in the sunlight. She struggled weakly, calling for her mother in a voice that made Elias's heart tighten. "Captain," Mira said hesitantly. "We can't just—" "I know what I saw." Elias interrupted. "We can't leave her there. The order was clear." The Intrepid crew had been trained to avoid unnecessary risks, especially in enemy territory. But Elias knew instinctively that he could not let the child die. With a swift decision, he grabbed his combat suit and helmet, calling for his team. "Suit up. We're going in." The descent to the planet's surface was tense. The human dropship skimmed low, dodging plasma fire from distant snipers. Elias's team disembarked, weapons ready, but Elias ignored the urging to engage. His eyes were fixed on the girl. "She's just a child," he muttered to himself, almost as if convincing himself it was enough reason to act. As they neared the rubble, the mercenaries seemed unaware of the approaching humans. Elias took a calculated risk, darting from cover to cover. His team followed, suppressing minor threats but always keeping their focus on the girl. Finally, he reached her. She was pinned under a large beam, groaning in pain. "Hold on," he whispered, lifting the heavy metal with all his strength. It was exhausting, but adrenaline surged through him. Free at last, she clung to him, shivering and frightened. "Stay still," he instructed softly. "I've got you." Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. Elias looked up to see Queen Seraphine herself descending from a hovering craft. Her armor gleamed, and her presence was commanding, almost overwhelming. She carried herself with a poise that spoke of centuries of tradition, yet her eyes betrayed a storm of emotion. "Step back, human," she said, her voice resonating with authority. "That child is mine." Elias froze, unsure if she would attack. But Seraphine's gaze was not just anger, it was a mixture of shock, curiosity, and something he could not read. "She's hurt," Elias replied carefully. "She needed help. I saved her from dying." Seraphine's eyes softened slightly, but only for a moment. The surrounding mercenaries hesitated, waiting for her command. Elias took a cautious step back, keeping the girl behind him. "You have broken the rules of our land," Seraphine said. "Humans are not supposed to interfere with Zetherian lives." "I couldn't leave her to die," Elias said simply, meeting her gaze. "No matter whose child she is." A tense silence followed. The queen studied him as if trying to understand the logic of a species so different from her own. Finally, she gave a subtle nod. Her soldiers lowered their weapons, though their eyes remained wary. "This will be remembered," she said. "Take her, but know that your actions do not go unnoticed." Elias exhaled in relief. "Thank you. I'll bring her somewhere safe." The queen turned sharply and boarded her craft, ascending back into the sky with a grace that left Elias awed. He had no time to dwell on it. He lifted Lyra into his arms and called for extraction. On the ride back to the human base, the child began to stir, her small fingers brushing his armor. "You saved me?" she asked in broken words, her voice trembling. "Yes," Elias said with a gentle smile. I saved you. You're safe now. Lyra's eyes, wide and curious, studied him closely. She seemed to understand in her own way that this human was different. Not just a soldier, not just an enemy, but someone capable of kindness and courage. Back at the field hospital, Elias laid her gently on a medical bed. Doctors and nurses rushed to assess her injuries, but he lingered nearby, keeping a watchful eye. Captain, Mira said, approaching him quietly. This changes things. The Queen knows now that we are here. She may react, and not all Zetherians will see this as we do. Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Humanity had always seen the Zetherians as distant enemies, fearsome and unyielding. But here, in this moment, the line between enemy and ally blurred. He had acted from instinct, from compassion, and it had saved a life. But he also knew that actions like these could have consequences far beyond what he could imagine. As night fell over the base, Elias remained by Lyra's side, thinking about the Queen, about her people, and about the fragile thread of trust he had just woven between two warring civilizations. Lyra's breathing slowed as sleep overcame her, her small hand curling slightly around his armor. Elias gazed down at her, feeling a sense of responsibility heavier than any weapon he had carried. Outside, the stars shimmered cold and distant. Somewhere among them, Queen Seraphine watched from afar, her mind alive with thoughts of the human who dared to defy convention, the one who had saved her daughter's life. And in her culture, such an act could never be forgotten. Tomorrow, she would decide what that meant, for her people, and for the human who had altered the course of events with a single, courageous act. Elias did not know what the future held, but he knew one thing with certainty. He had chosen the right path, and no enemy, no rule, and no fear could make him regret saving a child's life. And somewhere, deep in the quiet hum of the medical bay, a tiny hand reached for his, a silent promise of trust and hope that could change everything. The morning light filtered through the human base's observation dome, casting long shadows across the clean metal floors. Captain Elias Varick sat in the quiet of the command room, his mind heavy with thoughts. Lyra, the Zetherian girl he had saved, slept peacefully in the medical bay, her small chest rising and falling with even breaths. Yet the calm inside the base contrasted sharply with the storm that was already brewing outside. Word of Elias's act had already begun to spread. Not through official channels, but through whispers. Human soldiers who had witnessed his courage spoke in awe. And somewhere far beyond human space, those whispers reached Queen Seraphine. On her flagship orbiting the Zetherian sector, Seraphine stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the distant planet. The humans were not supposed to interfere. Yet here was one of them, carrying her daughter to safety. She could not ignore it. The act demanded recognition, for in Zetherian culture, saving a child, even a child of an enemy, was more than heroism. It was a bond, an unbreakable promise that tied the savior to the saved. I will go, she said softly to her aide, her voice firm. He has earned more than a glance. I will see him myself, the aide hesitated. Your Majesty, the humans may not understand our customs. You risk is part of leadership, Seraphine interrupted. I must honor what has been done. This human, he is not like the others. He may hold the key to future peace, or at least understanding. Meanwhile, on the human base, Elias faced his own challenges. The higher command had convened an emergency meeting. Captain Varick, said Admiral Harlan, his expression stern, we've received word that Queen Seraphine is aware of your actions. She may come herself. This is unprecedented. Your decision to save that girl, while admirable, could endanger the entire sector. I understand, sir, Elias replied, keeping his tone calm. But I couldn't let a child die. I acted on instinct, not orders. Instinct doesn't carry the weight of diplomacy, Harlan countered. We have protocols for a reason. Do you realize what could happen if she decides to take action? Elias leaned back, studying the ceiling. Then we prepare. But I will not regret saving that girl. Not for the universe. The room fell silent. No one could argue with the truth of his words. Back in the medical bay, Lyra awoke, her eyes blinking in confusion. She stared at Elias, her small fingers reaching toward his arm. You saved me, she said, her voice soft, tinged with wonder. Yes, he replied with a gentle smile. And you're safe now. She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to understand how someone so different could care so much. Human, kind, she whispered, the words broken but sincere. Elias felt a strange warmth. Humanity was often measured in power, technology, and strategy. But here, in the small trust of a child, it was something purer. Courage and compassion could speak louder than any weapon. The quiet was shattered by a sudden alert. Sensors had picked up an incoming vessel. Large, fast, and unmistakably Zetherian. "They're here," Mira said, tension in her voice. Elias nodded. "Keep the defensive systems on standby. I want no surprises, but we show no aggression unless necessary." The vessel descended smoothly into the human spaceport. Its hull gleamed in the sunlight, reflecting an elegance that contrasted with the humans' utilitarian ships. The hatch opened and Queen Seraphine stepped down. Her presence commanded immediate attention. The guards instinctively straightened, unsure whether to prepare for combat or diplomacy. Elias approached cautiously, keeping a respectful distance. Seraphine's eyes met his, sharp and intelligent, scanning him like a predator evaluating prey, but not with hostility. There was curiosity there, and perhaps even a trace of admiration. "You are Captain Varric," she said, her voice calm but carrying undeniable authority. "The one who saved Lyra." "I am," Elias replied. "I acted to save her life. Nothing more." "Your actions carry weight," Seraphine said. "In our culture, saving a child binds you to a promise. You are now responsible. Not just for Lyra, but for how her life and mine intersects with yours." Elias frowned, trying to understand. "Responsible? I don't belong to you. I'm a human, under human command." Seraphine tilted her head. "Belonging is not ownership, Captain. It is trust, duty, and honor. You saved my daughter. In our eyes, you cannot undo that. You are claimed, not as a prisoner, but as someone entrusted to protect what matters most to me." The words struck Elias. He had faced countless enemies in his career, but never a situation like this. The concept of being claimed was foreign, yet he could sense the sincerity and gravity in her tone. He looked at Lyra, who clung to his side, then back at the Queen. I will protect her," he said carefully. "That I can promise. But I will not be a prisoner." Seraphine studied him for a long moment, then gave a small, approving nod. "Good, that is all I ask. But know this, actions like yours will not be forgotten. You have changed the course of more than one life today." Tension eased slightly as the Queen's entourage spread out, showing no intent to attack. Her soldiers, massive and formidable, watched closely but followed her lead. It was a delicate balance, trust built on courage. Respect earned through deeds. As the Queen's ship prepared to leave, she spoke again, her eyes locking with Elias's. "Captain Varric, you may yet understand what it means to stand for honor beyond your own species. I will watch and I will decide how our paths continue. But remember, Lyra's life is tied to yours now. Protect her or face consequences we cannot predict." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Even if he didn't fully grasp Zetherian customs, he knew one thing. Lyra's safety was now entwined with his actions in ways he could not yet foresee. After the Queen departed, the base slowly returned to normal. Elias stayed with Lyra, letting her adjust to her surroundings. He introduced her to human food, simple games, and quiet routines that contrasted sharply with the chaos she had experienced. Through it all, he noticed small things: her fascination with human tools, her quick learning, and the way she watched him with thoughtful eyes. She was not just a child. She was intelligent, resourceful, and already beginning to understand the world around her. That evening, as Elias checked the perimeter and systems, Mira approached him quietly. "Captain," she said, "I've been reviewing the Queen's culture. Being claimed is serious. Not everyone will see it as a courtesy. Some may see it as a threat on both sides." Elias nodded, staring at the stars beyond the observation dome. "I know, but I also know this: Lyra is alive because of our choices, and I will do everything to keep her that way." Mira hesitated, then said softly, "You've already done more than anyone could ask, but be careful. Both humans and Zetherians will be watching, and not everyone will agree with what you've done." "I'm aware," Elias said, "but I won't let fear dictate what's right. Courage doesn't always follow orders." As night fell over the base, Elias sat beside Lyra's bed. She was asleep, her small hand curled around a blanket, her face calm for the first time in days. He thought of Queen Seraphine, of her words, and of the unspoken bond that had formed through a single act of bravery. Somewhere out there, across the cold expanse of space, the Queen watched her daughter and the human who had saved her, and in her mind she began to consider the possibilities. Could a human be trusted? Could he understand honor, duty, and the weight of saving a life in the way her people did? Elias did not know, but as he glanced at Lyra, he felt the stirrings of a new understanding. Humanity's strength was not just in weapons or strategy. It was in courage, compassion, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. And for the first time he realized that those qualities might reach across worlds, bridging gaps that seemed unbridgeable. The future was uncertain. The Queen's claim was a shadow over everything, a reminder that choices had consequences far beyond the moment. Yet in this quiet, fragile peace, Elias found something rare: purpose, clarity, and the knowledge that he had done the right thing no matter the cost. And for Lyra, the human who had saved her was no longer just a stranger. He was a protector, a friend, and perhaps, in ways neither fully understood, a bridge between two very different worlds. The stars twinkled in the darkness, silent witnesses to the beginnings of a bond that could change the course of history. The human spaceport was unusually tense that morning. Military personnel moved with heightened awareness, checking weapons, scanning the horizon, and monitoring every communication channel. Captain Elias Varick paced in the observation tower, his mind alert, knowing what was coming. He had seen the signs, the Zetherian fleet approaching, but nothing in his training prepared him for the arrival of Queen Seraphine herself. "Captain," Lieutenant Mira said, her voice low but steady. "Her flagship is entering the atmosphere. Sensors show no weapons fire, but there's a heavy security presence." "This is not a routine visit," Elias nodded. "I know. Keep the defenses ready, but don't fire unless we're attacked. This is delicate." The massive Zetherian vessel descended gracefully, landing on the designated docking bay. Its design was elegant yet intimidating. Smooth armor plates glinting in the artificial sunlight, energy shields faintly glowing along its edges. The hatch opened with a hiss and Queen Seraphine stepped out, her tall, regal form framed by the airlock. Her presence commanded immediate attention. Humans instinctively straightened, unsure whether to prepare for combat or diplomacy. Seraphine's eyes scanned the crowd before settling on Elias. She walked toward him with a calm confidence, each step measured and purposeful. Around her, Zetherian guards, massive, heavily armored, and silently alert, moved in perfect formation. They radiated power, but their loyalty was to the Queen alone, not the humans. Elias approached cautiously. "Your Majesty," he said formally, inclining his head. "You are Captain Varick," she said, her voice steady and commanding, carrying an authority that seemed to echo even without sound. "The one who saved Lyra?" "I am," he replied. "I did what I thought was right. She was in danger." Seraphine's gaze softened slightly as she looked at him, though her expression remained unreadable. "In saving my daughter, you have done something remarkable. You have shown courage and compassion, qualities that are rare among humans and even rarer among warriors of the frontier. But this act carries consequences. You are now claimed according to Zetherian tradition." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "Claimed? Oh, so you do not understand the full meaning yet," Seraphine said, her eyes sharp and penetrating. "Claiming is not ownership. It is responsibility, trust, and honor. You saved a life that is precious to me and to my people. That action binds you to a duty that will not be ignored." Elias swallowed hard, struggling to grasp the concept. In human terms, no one could claim another person simply for saving a life. Yet the conviction in her eyes, the unwavering strength of her presence, made him realize that this was not negotiable. "I will protect her," he said cautiously, "and I will respect your customs. But I am still human, and I cannot abandon my duties to my own people." Seraphine considered his words for a long moment. Then she gave a slow, approving nod. "Good, you speak with honesty. That is the first sign that you may understand what it means to be bound by honor." Lyra, sensing the presence of her mother, stirred from behind a protective shield created by the humans. She clung to Elias's leg, her small eyes wide. The Queen's gaze softened as she saw her daughter's trust in the human. That trust, fragile but real, made her decision clear. "You have done more than any human has in centuries," Seraphine continued. "I will observe you. I will ensure my daughter is safe. But I will also learn whether your courage is matched by wisdom and integrity." The tension in the spaceport remained palpable. Soldiers whispered among themselves, unsure whether to trust the Queen or fear her. Elias felt the weight of responsibility heavier than any battle he had faced. One wrong move and he could ignite a conflict far larger than any skirmish on the frontier. "Captain Varric," Seraphine said, her voice cutting through the whispers, "we must speak alone. I wish to understand the human who defies convention and saves a child at great risk. You will accompany me to a neutral chamber." Elias hesitated for a moment but nodded. "Understood, Your Majesty." They moved to a secure chamber inside the Queen's temporary base, a room designed with elegance and functionality. Holographic displays lined the walls showing star maps, territorial borders, and subtle security feeds. It was clear that Seraphine's control extended not only over her warriors but over knowledge and strategy. "You are brave," she began, sitting across from him. "Yet bravery alone does not define a leader. I wish to see what else you carry inside. Courage without wisdom can be dangerous." "I've led soldiers in battle," Elias said. "I've faced impossible odds. I've made decisions that cost lives and saved others. I act with a mixture of instinct and strategy. That is all I can offer." Seraphine's eyes studied him carefully. "Instinct, strategy, that is intriguing. Most humans rely only on tools and technology. Few rely on morality as a guide. You have shown both." Elias felt a mixture of pride and caution. "I do what I believe is right. I don't act for recognition. I act to protect life, and sometimes that means going against orders or expectations." The Queen's expression softened. "It is rare to see such conviction. And it is rare to see a human who understands the weight of honor outside their own culture. You are different. That is why you are claimed. Not to possess, but to observe, test, and ensure that your values can withstand the trials ahead." Outside the chamber, the atmosphere of the spaceport was shifting. Some humans felt uneasy, unsure how to react to the Queen's claim. Others were inspired by Elias's courage, realizing that humanity's reputation was changing in the eyes of the Zetherians. Back in the chamber, Elias and Seraphine continued to talk. She asked questions about human culture, about his experience as a soldier, and about his perspective on life and duty. He, in turn, learned about Zetherian codes of honor, the significance of family, and the delicate balance of power among their people. The conversation was cautious, but a bridge was slowly forming. Hours passed. Lyra, meanwhile, began to explore under careful supervision. She moved with curiosity and intelligence, asking questions, observing humans, and occasionally peeking at the Queen's guards. She seemed to understand more than her age suggested, a silent reminder to both Elias and Seraphine of the stakes involved. Finally, Seraphine stood. "You have shown patience, courage, and understanding," she said. "Tomorrow, we will begin a series of exercises designed to test your judgment and ability to protect my daughter. These are not simple drills. They are measures of character. You will be evaluated, and the outcome will influence how our people view humans in the future." Elias nodded, accepting the challenge. "I will do my best. For Lyra, and for both our peoples." The Queen's presence was powerful, yet there was a subtle warmth in her regard. "You are beginning to understand, Captain. This is not about fear or dominance. It is about trust, courage, and the ability to act rightly when it matters most." As the day ended, Elias returned to the human base with Lyra. She held his hand tightly, her small fingers wrapping around his armor. He looked at her and she smiled faintly, a mixture of innocence and newfound confidence. "Will she be kind to me?" Lyra asked softly. "She already is," Elias said. "And so are you. That's what matters." Night fell over the base and the stars twinkled silently above. Somewhere beyond, Queen Seraphine observed from her ship, thoughtful and calculating. Elias's actions had earned him attention, respect, and a challenge that would define the coming days. For the first time in his career, Elias realized that being a hero was not just about fighting battles. It was about understanding, protecting, and bridging the divide between worlds. And in that realization, he found purpose deeper than any mission he had undertaken. Tomorrow would bring trials, tests, and perhaps danger. But tonight, Elias allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. Humanity had shown courage, and in that courage a new bond had begun, a bond that could change the future of two civilizations forever. The neutral planet of Virelia hung like a jewel in the outer system, its pale blue oceans and rolling green plains offering a temporary sanctuary for humans and Zetherians alike. Captain Elias Varick had chosen it carefully. It was far enough from human command and Zetherian strongholds to allow him, Lyra, and Queen Seraphine a measure of privacy, but not far enough to escape the eyes of those who might seek to manipulate or challenge them. The day began quietly, almost deceptively. Lyra explored the terrain, her laughter echoing as she ran through fields dotted with strange alien flora. Elias observed her, feeling a mixture of relief and determination. The child's innocence and courage had already begun to shape his perspective on life and duty. But peace was fragile. Intelligence reports from both human and Zetherian sources began to filter in. Elias discovered that rogue Zetherian generals, angered by Queen Seraphine's decision to spare the humans and allow her daughter to remain in their care, were gathering forces to reclaim Lyra by force. At the same time, some human officers, skeptical of the Queen's intentions, discussed the possibility of detaining Elias or removing him from command to prevent further complications. Mira approached him with a worried expression. "Captain, the situation is worse than we thought. There are factions on both sides planning aggressive moves. We may not have much time before they act." Elias clenched his fists. "Then we prepare. Lyra's safety comes first. Whatever it takes, we keep her safe." Queen Seraphine, sensing the unease, gathered her advisors and the small contingent of loyal warriors. She moved with a quiet authority that demanded attention, her eyes sweeping over the room as if seeing both the present and future at once. "You must understand," she said, addressing Elias and his team, "that the threats you face are not simple battles. These are challenges to trust, to honor, and to loyalty. Those who cannot see beyond their own pride will act without consideration for life or peace. We must act decisively." Elias nodded. "Understood. But we won't act recklessly. We use intelligence, speed, and strategy. We'll protect Lyra and minimize casualties." Seraphine's gaze softened as she looked at Lyra. "This child is a symbol of hope. Her safety is more than personal. It is a message to our people. To endanger her is to endanger the possibility of understanding between our species." The day progressed with preparation. Elias and Seraphine coordinated their combined forces, human ingenuity meeting Zetherian strength. Defensive perimeters were established, early warning systems tested, and escape routes mapped. Lyra, ever curious, absorbed the proceedings with fascination, often asking questions and pointing out details the adults might overlook. Her intelligence, bravery, and innocence reminded everyone why they were risking everything. By late afternoon, the first signs of trouble appeared. Scouts reported unusual movements near the planet's northern forests, large coordinated groups approaching swiftly. The rogue Zetherians had arrived. Their intent was clear: reclaim Lyra and punish those who had allowed her safety. Elias reviewed the strategy with Seraphine. "We can't engage them head-on. They're too numerous, but we can use the terrain to our advantage, create ambushes and slow them down until reinforcements arrive, or until we can find a way to negotiate." Seraphine nodded. "Agreed. You understand tactics beyond what most humans display. That is admirable." As night fell, the first wave of rogue Zetherians moved into position. Their armor glinted under the pale light, and their war cries echoed across the plains. But Elias, Seraphine, and the combined defenders were ready. Using clever traps, environmental advantages, and coordinated strikes, they forced the attackers to hesitate, slowing their advance without causing unnecessary deaths. Amid the chaos, Lyra stayed close to Elias, her small hands gripping his armor. "Captain," she whispered, "I can help. I can see things they cannot." Elias smiled, though his concern never wavered. "You're already helping, Lyra. Stay close, and we'll get through this together." The rogue Zetherians, frustrated by their slow progress, began to adapt, using strategies that mirrored those of Seraphine's loyalists. It became clear that this conflict was not just about physical strength. It was a test of intelligence, adaptability, and trust. During a critical moment, a rogue squad managed to flank the defenders. Elias noticed the maneuver, quickly analyzing the terrain. He issued rapid orders combining human tactical insight with Zetherian brute strength. Loyal soldiers moved with precision, creating barriers, drawing fire, and cutting off the attacker's path. In the midst of the battle, Lyra spotted a hidden ambush that the adults had missed. She pointed it out to Elias, who immediately redirected forces, neutralizing the threat without casualties. Her quick thinking saved lives and earned the admiration of both humans and Zetherians. Queen Seraphine observed quietly from a nearby vantage point, her respect for Elias growing with every decision he made. She saw not only a capable leader, but someone who understood the value of life, the importance of trust, and the weight of honor in battle. After hours of skirmishing, the rogue Zetherians began to retreat. They had underestimated the combination of human ingenuity, Zetherian strength, and the small but decisive input of a child. The victory was not complete. More challenges would come. But it was a demonstration that humanity's courage and creativity could hold against overwhelming odds. As the dust settled, Elias and Seraphine stood together, surveying the aftermath. Lyra approached, her face bright with cautious excitement. "You did it," she said simply, looking at Elias. "No," he corrected gently. "We did it together." Seraphine's gaze met his. "You have proven yourself, Captain Varric, not only in battle but in judgment, restraint, and foresight. My people will hear of this, and perhaps in time, humanity will be seen as more than enemies or intruders. They may be recognized as allies." Elias nodded, aware of the weight of her words. The conflict had revealed more than physical prowess. It had shown that trust, intelligence, and courage could bridge worlds. But the night was far from over. Scouts reported that human officers were moving in from the sector, questioning Elias's decisions and considering intervention. The delicate balance between species, loyalty, and personal bonds was about to be tested once again. Elias turned to Seraphine. "We need to move. Lyra's safety depends on keeping both sides from acting recklessly. We need a plan to escape, somewhere neutral, secure, where we can regroup," Seraphine agreed. "Then we act. You have shown me that your decisions can balance strength with wisdom. Lead and I will follow." Together they prepared for departure. Human engineers loaded essential supplies onto a small, versatile shuttle, while Zetherian warriors provided protection. Lyra watched, her excitement tempered by a small trace of anxiety. Elias crouched beside her. "It's going to be all right," he said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're going somewhere safe. And I promise no one is taking you from me, or from the Queen." The shuttle lifted off, disappearing into the dark expanse of space. Behind them, the fields of Virelia glowed faintly in the starlight, silent witnesses to the courage, strategy, and cooperation that had just taken place. For Elias, this escape was more than a tactical maneuver. It was a test of character. He had faced overwhelming odds, balanced loyalty to his people with a duty to another species, and protected a life that was more than just a mission objective. Humanity had proven itself not merely through firepower, but through ingenuity, courage, and moral strength. Queen Seraphine sat across from him in the shuttle, her posture regal, yet her expression softened as she glanced at Lyra. "You are exceptional," she said quietly. "Not every human could have acted as you did, and not every human could have earned my trust so quickly." Elias smiled faintly, the tension easing slightly. "I did what I had to do. That's all any of us can do." Lyra leaned against his arm, her small face bright with admiration. "Captain, we are safe. Because of you." "Yes," Elias said, "and we will stay safe. Together." As the shuttle glided through the void, a new understanding began to take root. The danger was far from over, but humanity's courage and wisdom had already begun to reshape the perceptions of those who had once seen them only as intruders or enemies. And in that quiet determination, Elias realized that the true battle was not against weapons or warriors. It was against fear, mistrust, and the limits placed on understanding between species. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to a bond forged in courage, tested by danger, and strengthened by trust. And as the shuttle disappeared into the darkness, carrying its precious passengers toward an uncertain future, Elias knew one thing for certain: humanity would never be underestimated again. The neutral planet of Virelia lay under a quiet sky, its rolling plains bathed in pale moonlight. For Captain Elias Varric, the calm was deceptive. Despite their earlier victory against the rogue Zetherians, intelligence reports confirmed that a full-scale assault was imminent. These enemies were not merely testing boundaries. They sought to take Lyra, challenge Queen Seraphine, and punish Elias for defying expectations. Elias moved through the defensive encampment, his boots crunching on alien soil. Zetherian warriors adjusted their armor and weapons, following Seraphine's precise orders, while human soldiers calibrated energy shields and automated turrets. Every eye was alert, every mind focused on the task ahead. "Captain," Lieutenant Mira said, approaching him with a handheld console, "our scanners show multiple squads approaching from 3 directions. They are organized, disciplined, and heavily armed. This is not just an attack, it's a siege." Elias studied the holographic projection. "We'll need to use the terrain, our traps, and every advantage we have. Humans and Zetherians working together can hold them off, but coordination will be key. Seraphine, can we count on your loyalists to follow our strategy exactly?" Seraphine, standing tall beside him, gave a firm nod. "They follow me because they trust me. And I trust you. We act as one, or we fail together." Lyra, sensing the tension, clutched Elias's armor. "Captain, will we be okay?" Elias crouched beside her, smiling to mask his concern. "We will. You've helped us before and you'll help again. Just stay close and trust us." As the first waves of rogue Zetherians emerged from the forests, the battle began. Energy blasts illuminated the night and the ground shook as armored units clashed. Human strategy combined with Zetherian power created a dynamic defense. Humans set traps and created diversionary paths, while Zetherian warriors used brute strength and expert coordination to hold the enemy at bay. Elias moved with purpose, issuing orders and adjusting tactics in real time. Every move was calculated, every decision critical. The rogue forces had expected a straightforward victory, but they were met with unpredictable resistance, clever maneuvers, and unity they had not anticipated. In the midst of the chaos, Lyra noticed an enemy flanking unit moving unnoticed. She pointed it out to Elias, who immediately redirected a squad to intercept them. The maneuver prevented a breach in their defenses and highlighted her intelligence and bravery. Seraphine observed silently, impressed by both Elias's leadership and Lyra's quick thinking. "This child," she murmured to herself, "is more than a symbol. She is the bridge between our worlds." Hours passed with intense fighting. The rogue Zetherians pressed their advantage but found themselves increasingly frustrated. Human ingenuity and Zetherian resilience created obstacles they could not easily overcome. Every ambush, every calculated strike forced them to adapt, and Elias used that to his advantage. During a crucial moment, a massive energy cannon from the rogue forces targeted the central encampment where Lyra was stationed. Elias reacted instantly, coordinating a counterstrike that disabled the cannon before it could fire. Human precision, Zetherian strength, and Lyra's timely warning had saved countless lives. Seeing their plans unravel, the rogue generals attempted a retreat. But Elias was not content to let them regroup. He ordered a coordinated pursuit, combining Zetherian aerial units with human tactical drones to intercept the fleeing forces. The rogue Zetherians, now demoralized and disorganized, could not escape. By dawn, the battlefield was quiet. Victory was theirs, not just because of strength or numbers, but because of unity, intelligence, and courage. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, surveying the scene. Zetherians and humans alike moved to secure the area, tending to the wounded and ensuring Lyra's safety. She ran to him, her small face bright with relief and joy. "You did it," she said simply, hugging his leg. "No," Elias corrected gently. "We did it together." Queen Seraphine approached, her expression calm but proud. "Captain Varric," she said, her voice carrying authority and warmth. "You have done more than protect my daughter. You have demonstrated that humanity's courage, ingenuity, and sense of honor are forces to be respected across the stars. Today, you have proven the value of working together, of trust, loyalty, and bravery." Elias looked at her, humbled by her words. "I only did what was right. Lyra's life mattered. Nothing more." Seraphine smiled faintly. "Sometimes doing what is right changes more than we expect. Today, you have changed perceptions, not just of yourself, but of your people. Humanity is no longer seen as merely a threat. You have earned respect that weapons alone could never achieve." The human and Zetherian soldiers shared cautious but genuine smiles. In the aftermath of battle, camaraderie had begun to form. Humans saw Zetherians as more than alien opponents. Zetherians saw humans as capable allies. The seeds of trust and understanding had been planted. Lyra ran between Elias and Seraphine, laughing softly. "We are safe. Because of you both." Elias knelt down, letting her climb onto his shoulder. "And we'll keep you safe. Always." Seraphine placed a hand on Elias's shoulder, a subtle gesture of approval and partnership. "Captain, from this day forward our bond is recognized. Not through fear, not through dominance, but through respect and shared purpose. You are claimed in the way that matters, not as possession, but as a partner in life and in duty." Elias felt the weight of her words. This claim was not about control. It was a bond of trust, honor, and responsibility. He glanced at Lyra, then at the soldiers who had fought and survived together, and understood the deeper meaning. Humanity had earned its place not through conquest but through courage, ingenuity, and compassion. The sky brightened as the first rays of the sun touched Veralia. The battlefield, once chaotic and dangerous, now lay quiet and serene. Survivors from both sides tended to the wounded, repaired equipment, and shared small gestures of gratitude. The conflict had not just been fought with weapons, it had been fought with understanding, moral strength, and human spirit. Elias stood with Seraphine and Lyra, looking out at the horizon. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Seraphine considered the question carefully. "Now we rebuild trust. We show both our peoples that life, honor, and courage matter more than old grudges. There will be challenges, yes, but we have proven that cooperation can overcome even the greatest odds. And you, Captain Varric, will continue to be a bridge between worlds." Lyra reached up and held both their hands, a simple gesture that spoke more than words. In her small hands lay hope, the hope that enemies could become allies, that courage could inspire change, and that humanity could rise to greatness not by destroying others, but by protecting and understanding them. Elias smiled, feeling a sense of purpose deeper than any mission or battle he had faced. "Then we move forward, together." The Queen nodded, and for a brief moment, the three of them stood united, a human, an alien queen, and the child who had changed everything. Word of the battle spread quickly, reaching human and Zetherian leadership alike. Reports highlighted the bravery, strategy, and moral strength demonstrated by Elias and his team. Humanity's reputation was forever altered. No longer merely a faction of warriors and explorers, they were seen as capable of courage, empathy, and leadership. Meanwhile, Lyra became a symbol of hope, representing the possibility of trust and friendship between two very different civilizations. Her bond with Elias and Seraphine inspired stories, legends, and the beginnings of a new era, where enemies could learn to see each other as allies, not threats. Elias, now recognized by both humans and Zetherians, reflected on the journey. He had faced impossible odds, balanced loyalty and duty across species, and protected life when it mattered most. And in doing so, humanity had earned its place in the stars, not through weapons or fear, but through courage, compassion, and intelligence. The sun rose higher, casting light on a planet scarred by battle but alive with new beginnings. Humans and Zetherians worked side by side, sharing knowledge, healing, and understanding. And at the center of it all, Elias stood with Lyra and Seraphine, knowing that the choices they had made, acts of bravery, trust, and honor, had changed the course of history. In the quiet moments, as the planet slowly healed and the survivors rebuilt, Elias understood the truth of what he had experienced. Humanity's strength was more than physical power. It was the courage to act rightly, the wisdom to think beyond oneself, and the ability to inspire trust and unity, even in the most unlikely circumstances. And somewhere in the stars, beyond wars and old grudges, the light of humanity's courage shone brighter than ever. Proof that even across galaxies, humans could rise, protect, and change the world. Elias looked at Lyra, then at Seraphine, and said softly, "We did it. All of us." Lyra smiled and hugged him. "Yes, Captain. All of us." Queen Seraphine placed her hand on his shoulder once more. "This is only the beginning. But you have proven that humans can be more than warriors. They can be leaders, protectors, and partners in the universe." And in that moment, humanity's future was no longer uncertain. It was a future built on courage, honor, and the unbreakable bonds formed when someone chooses to act rightly. No matter the risk, the stars above twinkled silently, witnesses to a story of bravery, trust, and hope. A story where humanity, for once, could proudly stand and say, "We rose, we protected, and we earned our place among the stars."